This video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN. Hong Kong, the 2nd of June 2013. A cybersecurity agent sits in the bustling restaurant of the Mira Hotel. He fiddles nervously with a Rubik's cube. He looks up and his gaze locks with two newcomers, a man and a woman, one a hardened journalist and the other a documentary filmmaker. As he recognizes the pair, he pockets the cube and stands. They make their way through the hotel towards the elevators. As they enter the agent's hotel room silently, the woman unclasps her case on the unmade bed. As she sets her camera on a tripod, the agent takes his position on a chair opposite the journalist. The room hums with the weight of their impending conversation. The world, unknowing, teetered on the brink of a revelation from Edward Snowden that would change it forever. More than 10 years on since Snowden's infamous NSA leaks, the debate over whether he is a friend or foe to America rages on. Edward Joseph Snowden was born on the 21st of June 1983 in North Carolina. His father, Lonnie, worked for the U.S. Coast Guard as a warrant officer, and his mother, Elizabeth, as a clerk for the U.S. District Court of Maryland. He had a sister, Jessica, who would go on to become a lawyer, also working for the U.S. federal government. Snowden's interest in technology and computers developed from a young age. Sparked by his father bringing home various gadgets from work, Snowden was captivated in particular by the new Commodore 64 personal computer his father brought home one day. Snowden would stay up past his bedtime watching his father use the computer, and was eventually allowed to play games on it himself. From there, Snowden got into video gaming, spending countless hours playing games like Super Mario Bros. And Tekken. Young Edward was a child of the internet, reveling in the anonymity the first decade of the World Wide Web provided. He crawled various forums and chat rooms, creating multiple personas and hiding his true age. Shortly before his 9th birthday, the Snowden family relocated to Fort Meade in Maryland. Edward told of how he went from being popular among his classmates to being relentlessly mocked and teased at his new school in Maryland. By his own admission, young Edward was not a good student, staying up late every night playing computer games and browsing the internet. Snowden spent his time at school daydreaming about hacking and sleeping through his classes. He developed a keen interest in Japanese art and culture, including anime. Glandular fever caused Snowden a prolonged absence from high school and ultimately caused him to drop out during his sophomore year. Snowden later enrolled in community college and claimed to have passed the GED exams, an equivalent of the US high school diploma, but later investigations by the US authorities could find no evidence that he actually did this. If Snowden knew one thing, it was that he wanted to pursue a career in computers and the internet. Without much in the way of formal education, Snowden decided to take a Microsoft certification course. He started working as a freelance web designer for the owner of a small business that he met in his Japanese classes. Then, on September 11, 2001, the world changed forever. The terrorist attacks on US soil had a profound impact on the then 18-year-old Edward Snowden, as they did on most, if not all, Americans. The attacks prompted a legislative response in the form of the USA Patriot Act. The controversial act expanded the surveillance powers of the US government in an effort to thwart future terrorist attacks. Snowden's parents divorced that same year in 2001, which led to him living with his mother in Ellicott City, Maryland. He continued to spend much of his time online, in particular on the Ars Technica web forums, where he posted under the alias The One True Hoo-Ha. But as time wore on, the horrific events of that infamous September day continued to stir in Snowden a sense of patriotism and a desire to serve his country in the war on terrorism. He thus enlisted in the United States Army in 2003 with the aim of joining the Special Forces. This was, however, not to be, as he was discharged on medical grounds just a few months after joining the X-18 training program. Snowden claimed that he broke both his legs during a training exercise, which was the reason for his discharge. However, an NSA security official said later that it was shin splints that saw Snowden unable to complete basic training. With his military ambitions thwarted, Snowden needed to find another path to serve his country. The story of Edward Snowden will demonstrate just how important it is to be vigilant about our online privacy and security, which brings us to the sponsor of this video, Surfshark VPN. Surfshark VPN encrypts your online data, shielding you from big companies and protecting you from online identity theft and potential cyber attacks. But if the promise of a secure digital life isn't enough to sway you, consider this. Surfshark VPN also allows you to bypass geographical restrictions by altering your virtual location to any one of its over 3,200 servers spread across 100 countries. This feature grants you access to content libraries and streaming services from around the globe, which may otherwise be blocked in your region. And here's the kicker. Surfshark VPN can be used on multiple devices at the same time, a feature that sets it apart from most other VPN services. Surfshark is offering 3 months completely free when you use the offer code PHILIP at checkout. To take advantage of this offer, click the link in the description below or visit surfshark.deals/Philip. In 2005, Snowden took his first job at the CIA as a security guard at the Center for the Advanced Study of Language at the University of Maryland. After passing a polygraph test and a background check investigation, he worked as a security specialist and was given top-secret security clearance. Just 4 months later, Snowden joined BAE Systems in Maryland, a private company contracted to the CIA, where he worked as a systems engineer and administrator. A year later, Snowden converted from a contractor to a full-blown CIA employee, working from its headquarters in Langley, Virginia. As Snowden's career developed, he continued his life online, becoming fascinated by hacktivist groups, including the decentralized online hacking community, Anonymous. He longed for the internet of the late 1990s and early 2000s, which he saw as representative of the new frontier of the American dream. He observed, however, that as the internet grew ever larger and more complex, it became monopolized by large corporations and controlled by centralized governments and agencies. Within the CIA, Snowden didn't quite fit in with his peers. Contrary to claims made by Snowden, at the CIA he held an entry-level IT support position known as a TISO, or Telecommunications Information Systems Officer. The position still required top-secret security clearance and often involved operating under diplomatic cover in countries outside of the USA. He spent 6 months training for this position at the CIA's Secret School for Technology Specialists, during which time he lived in a Comfort Inn hotel with his fellow trainees. The hotel was somewhat dilapidated and was less than ideal as a semi-permanent residence for the students. Snowden raised the students' concerns over their accommodation. When he felt the complaint was not being suitably addressed, he went over the heads of his superiors by reporting the issue to more senior management. While the students were ultimately rehoused in more suitable accommodation at a Hampton Inn, he was reprimanded for his insubordination. This incident set the tone for Snowden's career within the intelligence community, with later reports on Snowden suggesting that he routinely ignored the chain of command and disobeyed orders. During his relatively brief time working directly for the CIA, he was sent for multiple counseling sessions to address his behavioral issues. Snowden nevertheless completed his training and was sent on his first assignment to Geneva in 2007. Snowden later wrote in his memoir that this was his creative punishment for the hotel incident. He had indicated his preference to be sent to the front line of the war in the Middle East, but was instead given a cushy assignment about as far away from the fighting as anybody could have hoped. While on his assignment in Geneva, Snowden told of an incident that cast a shadow over his view of the CIA and its operational methods. Snowden recounted an attempt by the CIA to recruit a Swiss banker, ending in him being plied with alcohol and encouraged to drive home drunk. When he was arrested for drunk driving, a CIA officer offered to get the banker out of trouble in exchange for him becoming an informant. This led Snowden to question the actions of his government and to feel that he was part of something causing more harm than good. Somewhat disillusioned, Snowden left formal employment with the CIA in 2009 after the end of his stint in Geneva. That same year, Snowden met American blogger and acrobat Lindsay Mills, and the pair soon started dating and living together. He then took up a new position working for Dell, one of the many private companies contracted to US intelligence agencies. Snowden's role saw him assigned to the Pacific Technical Center at the Yokota Air Base in Japan. Edward and Lindsay packed their things and moved to Tokyo. While in Japan, Snowden worked on how to defend US networks from Chinese hackers. This led him to study the Chinese government's mass surveillance programs. Snowden's top-secret security clearance also gave him free access to peek behind the curtain of the NSA's own spying systems. What he found induced in him a sense of shock. Snowden was left questioning whether the government he worked for was any better than the bad actors he defended his country against. Two of the primary surveillance programs worked on by Snowden during the time that he was contracted to the NSA included PRISM and x-keyscore. PRISM is an NSA program that gathers foreign intelligence passed through servers owned by Google, Apple, YouTube, Facebook, and other large tech companies. It allows US intelligence services direct access to the company's servers to search for patterns of potential criminal activity. The program is massive in its reach, allowing for near-limitless access to metadata without a court order. X-keyscore is the NSA's most wide-reaching intelligence collection computer system and is used to search and analyze global internet communications. It allows NSA operatives to observe the communications of anyone in real time anywhere around the world, pulling data from massive servers located globally. X-keyscore depends on the cooperation of multiple other Western countries that share data with each other. Seen by some as necessary tools to protect national security, the broad reach and lack of oversight of the implementation of the Patriot Act and its various programs raised concerns about potential abuses of power and infringements on civil liberties. At the time that Snowden became aware of these programs, they were, of course, highly classified and unknown to the American public. While working in Japan, Snowden by chance came across a classified report about the Bush administration's intensification of data collection and surveillance in the wake of the September 11th attacks. The program, known as Stellar Wind, allowed US intelligence agencies to intercept and data mine all metadata associated with the email communications, telephone conversations, financial transactions, and internet activity of its citizens. The program was first leaked to the media by Thomas Tam in 2004. However, the classified report that Snowden found gave far more detail about the extent of the program. What Snowden found to be the most disturbing fact, however, was that the program was still very much running in full swing. Snowden's disillusionment was made complete by his discoveries. He was sent into a deep depression and even manifested physical symptoms of his distress, including seizures. This was a decisive period in Snowden's life during which he decided that he had no choice but to go public with the secret information he had discovered. In March 2012, Snowden was reassigned by Dell to work at an NSA facility on the island of Oahu in Hawaii. Snowden claimed that his doctors recommended his transfer to the island as the climate would alleviate his medical issues. But in reality, he applied for the transfer to allow him broader access to classified information that he planned to leak. His role, much like before, was as a systems administrator, and he spent long days transferring large quantities of data between internal Microsoft SharePoint servers. He was stationed at an NSA facility called the Cunha Tunnel, which was a repurposed bomb-proof underground facility constructed during the Second World War. Snowden said that his breaking point came on the 12th of March 2013, when former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper testified before the US Congress that the NSA was not spying on its own citizens. Snowden, however, began to download files from NSA servers 8 months earlier in April of 2012. To make his task more efficient, Snowden created a web crawler application that pulled together files and data from all across the NSA's internal network. He legitimized his app by making it available to all NSA staff as a tool to aggregate and collate notices and documents posted to various virtual bulletin boards. In contravention of all security protocols, he also managed to convince as many as 30 colleagues to provide him with their passwords so that he could gain access to other secret information not otherwise available to him. By March 2013, Snowden had mined to the very bottom of the information available to him. He decided to leave Dell, transferring to work for another NSA contractor, Booz Allen Hamilton. He was conveniently stationed at the same NSA facility in Hawaii, but in a new operational role that provided levels of access to an entirely new repository of top-secret reports and information. He transferred from the Cunha Tunnel to the NSA Cryptologic Center on the island. It was here that he stole from the NSA its most top-secret information. The security at the cryptologic center was much stricter, using laptops without any USB interfaces or the ability to transfer data to external storage. Fortunately for Snowden, he had retained access to his old laptop. He could therefore transfer the classified documents within the NSA network and then download the data to external storage devices via his old NSA laptop. Within 6 months, Snowden illegally downloaded millions of files from NSA servers. He then had to think carefully about how he was going to reveal the truth to the world. He considered self-publishing his revelations online, but thought that would raise too many questions about the authenticity of the leaked documents. Sending the documents to WikiLeaks presented the same problems. Snowden felt also that he couldn't go to his superiors with the information, fearing that it would never see the light of day and his opportunity to expose the NSA would be lost forever. Snowden was aware of leakers and whistleblowers that came before him and how they faced criminal prosecution as a consequence. He had no faith in the legislative protections afforded to whistleblowers and decided therefore that his best option was to go to the traditional media. He identified Glenn Greenwald as his target. A journalist and former constitutional lawyer living in Brazil, Greenwald was a vocal critic of the NSA and an advocate of civil liberties. He seemed the ideal candidate to give credence to Snowden's leaks. On the 1st of December 2012, and while still working for Dell, Snowden made a decisive move. He sent an email to Greenwald under the alias name Cincinnatus. Snowden told Greenwald that he worked for the NSA and had confidential information to share, but insisted on Greenwald installing encryption software on his computer before sharing any documents. Greenwald was reluctant, thinking that Snowden was not genuine or that his story was not newsworthy, and so never installed the software. Growing impatient, Snowden also contacted Laura Poitras, a documentary filmmaker who by that time had released revelatory and controversial documentaries, including one on the American war in Iraq and another on the infamous Guantanamo Bay military prison. Poitras convinced Greenwald to travel with her to Hong Kong to meet secretly with Snowden, for she believed him to be genuine. Greenwald's bosses at The Guardian insisted on a third reporter, Ewan McCaskill, joining the party as they prepared to leave London for Hong Kong. Meanwhile, Snowden took leave from his NSA job, citing the need for treatment for his epilepsy. He left his girlfriend Lindsay behind, saying only that he would be away for a few weeks. Snowden chose Hong Kong as the location for the meeting, as it would put him out of the direct reach of US authorities. He also thought he had reasonable chances of being afforded asylum after the newspapers hit the shelves and all hell broke loose. 29-year-old Snowden arrived in Hong Kong on the 20th of May 2013, where he barricaded himself in his room at the Mira Hotel for 10 days. Greenwald, Poitras and McCaskill arrived on the 2nd of June 2013. On the day arranged for their meeting, the three journalists entered the hotel restaurant and identified Snowden by the Rubik's cube he played with while waiting for their arrival. Once inside his hotel room, Snowden was interviewed by Greenwald and McCaskill over several days, all of which was filmed by Poitras. Snowden said that he was motivated by what he felt was his ethical obligation to his countrymen and the world. He believed the NSA's abuse of power needed to be exposed and the free internet preserved. He couldn't bear to see the tools designed to protect the American people against terror attacks being used as weapons against them. Stunned by Snowden's story and the tens of thousands of classified documents he provided on an encrypted thumb drive, Greenwald wanted to start publishing stories as soon as possible. Assisted by McCaskill, Greenwald went on to write 4 primary bombshell stories that were published by The Guardian. The first article was published on the 6th of June 2013, and the public's reaction was immediate. Over the next few days, the world learned of the forced collection of all domestic phone records, the NSA's ability to eavesdrop on every single digital communication without a warrant, and the wholesale mining and collection of private metadata. Also revealed was the Five Eyes, an intelligence and information sharing agreement between the USA, Britain, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. There seemed no limit to the reach of global intelligence organizations into the private lives of individuals across the globe. On the 9th of June 2013, The Guardian revealed Edward Snowden as the source of the NSA leaks. This was done with Snowden's consent, as he had no intention of hiding his identity. Shortly thereafter, Snowden was charged by the US Justice Department under the Espionage Act with theft and a host of other charges. The race was then on for the US authorities to catch up with Snowden and have him extradited to the United States to face prosecution for his crimes. The moment his interviews were over, Snowden went into hiding in Hong Kong for several weeks. When it became clear that he would not be offered asylum in Hong Kong, he was forced to plan a hasty exit. Snowden left Hong Kong on the 23rd of June 2013, bound for Ecuador, the country that offered Julian Assange asylum. His route included a layover in Russia. However, he became stranded at Sheremetyevo International Airport in Moscow after US authorities rescinded his passport while his plane was still in the air. He spent the next month living in limbo in the airport's transit center, but on the 1st of August 2013 was granted temporary asylum by Russian authorities. All the while, the revelations from Snowden's leaks continued to make headlines, the fallout perhaps going beyond his own wildest expectations. Mass protests were sparked across the US, which soon spread to other Western countries and beyond. The debate around the individual's right to privacy versus the need to protect national security raged intensely. Snowden's girlfriend, Lindsay Mills, was left shocked and confused after Snowden's revelations became public. She had known nothing of what her partner had been up to and his plans to change both their lives forever. She ultimately came to terms with what Edward had done and left the United States to join Snowden in exile in Moscow around October 2014. On the 10th of October 2014, Poitras released the Snowden interviews as part of her exposé documentary, Citizen 4. The documentary told a more personal side of the story, giving the public insight into the man who drew back the curtain on the world's most powerful intelligence agencies. While Snowden remained at large, the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence was tasked with conducting a thorough investigation. After 2 years, a redacted version of the committee's report was declassified in September 2016. The report told a very different tale to that championed by Snowden and his supporters. It was revealed that Snowden stole as many as 1.5 million documents from NSA servers. It is thought that approximately 10,000 of these were leaked to the press, and there is no accounting for the rest. A member of the Intelligence Committee said this about Edward Snowden. He and his defenders claim that he is a whistleblower, but he isn't. Most of the material he stole had nothing to do with Americans' privacy, and its compromise has been of great value to America's adversaries and those who mean to do America harm. Whistleblowers are important to proper oversight, and we will protect them from retaliation, and those who engage in civil disobedience are willing to stay and face the consequences. The Select Committee report also declared Snowden to be a serial exaggerator and fabricator, lying about various events from his past and exaggerating his position and seniority at the CIA. He was a disgruntled employee, so the report says, that started stealing from the NSA following yet another altercation with a superior. Yet Snowden considers himself a whistleblower, as do many others. But the fact that Snowden did not utilize the regulated whistleblower procedures available to him and stole millions of classified documents means that he would be afforded no legal protections should he ever return to the United States. Ironically, for somebody purporting to champion the rights of privacy of the individual, the information he stole and leaked compromised the personally identifiable information of thousands of government employees and contractors. In 2016, the EU Parliament passed the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, and the general awareness of data privacy has become a hot-button issue politically. The online world has also seen the wholesale adoption of the HTTPS encryption protocol and the rise of encryption tools such as VPNs. While there is no denying that Snowden contributed to the conversation around data privacy and mass surveillance, how much of the development of the law and practices around these issues is hard to determine. In 2017, Snowden and Mills were married and have since had their first child. Snowden's memoir, Permanent Record, hit the shelves in September 2019. The book offered an in-depth look into his life, his motivations, and the events that led to his decision to expose the US government's mass surveillance program. A significant legal victory came for the public on the 2nd of September 2020, when a US federal court ruled in United States v. Moelin that the mass surveillance program Snowden exposed was illegal and potentially unconstitutional. In October 2020, Snowden's ties to Russia were solidified when he was granted permanent residency. This was followed in September 2022, with Snowden swearing allegiance to Russia and President Vladimir Putin granting him Russian citizenship. The irony of Snowden making Russia his home can hardly be denied. It is hard to square the people's champion of internet freedom and data privacy living in a country very much opposed to those very ideals. Today, Snowden continues to live in exile in Russia, often appearing via video link as a keynote speaker at various events around the world. On the 10th anniversary of the breaking of the NSA spy scandal, Snowden says he has no regrets, although he fears that government and corporate surveillance is today more pervasive and intrusive than ever before. Despite many calls, no US president has seen fit to pardon Snowden for his crimes. Throughout the years since the infamous leaks, Edward Snowden has remained a figure of controversy and intrigue. His actions have ignited global debates on mass surveillance, government secrecy, and the delicate balance between national security and individual privacy. His story continues to unfold, serving as a potent reminder of the power of information and the lengths to which governments will go to control it. Thank you again to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. To take advantage of the offer being made available through this channel, click the link in the description below or visit surfshark.deals/Philip.